Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is Everybody's Business from Bloomberg Businessweek. I'm Max Chafkin.
And I'm Stacey Vanek Smith.
And Stacey, we have a big conversation coming up about your favorite topic, the Federal Reserve. Our guest is Rohit Chopra. He was a big deal guy in the Biden administration, and he has some provocative things to say about Jerome Powell.
We're also talking about salary caps in professional sports leagues. Teams and players have been finding some pretty interesting ways around those limitations.
And our underrated story, Stacey, I have a brand idea for Elon Musk. Warning, may not be legal.
I will keep that in mind. Okay, obviously the big economic news this week was the Federal Reserve, but we also got some pretty big business news last night. We're recording Thursday morning, we should say.
Yeah, another late night host is down, Stacey.
Yes.
Amid some political pressure from the Trump administration, Disney essentially pulled Jimmy Kimmel, who is the ABC late night host, a competitor to Stephen Colbert, off the air amid political pressure from the Trump administration. For me, this story really has echoes of the one that we talked about with Felix Gillette a couple weeks ago with Stephen Colbert, where you have a combination of factors. One is the threat of regulation, of not approving mergers. And the other is like this format, the late night format, is basically failing. And all of these late night shows are not doing well. So Trump is giving these networks essentially an excuse to kill a product that is not working super well.
I would argue the bigger story in a certain way could be a potential threat to free speech and news organizations feeling like if one of their hosts or commentators says something or does something that the administration disagrees with, they might end up facing the very real wrath of like governmental regulation.
Yeah, 100%. And we have another story related to political pressure that just so happens to be going on right now.
We have another story related to political pressure, which is the Federal Reserve. For the first time this year, the Federal Reserve cut interest rates, which we were all kind of expecting. But there was a...
Cut it by 300%, right? As Donald Trump wanted.
Yeah, a quarter of a percentage point, which was like what was expected. But...
By economists.
Yes. Well, there was a lot of drama around this. We will get into kind of what was going on behind the scenes with Rohit Chopra in just a minute. But the Fed chair did say something that I thought was kind of interesting for the rest of us in the economy, which is he started to talk about stagflation, how prices are going up, how the economy is slowing down. And this is a really dangerous combination. And so I thought I would ask people how they were feeling about the economy right now. How do you feel about the economy right now?
Not good. All the prices are going up and up, especially food shopping. Before you could just put everything in your cart. And now you have to start cutting back on things.
It's a real have and have-nots economy. And, you look around, people are making a lot of money in some professions and the champagne's flowing, and in others, things are definitely a lot tighter.
I came here because this is the only thing I can afford right now.
The pizza, the $1.50 pizza slice?
Yeah, the slice, yeah. When I get the job, I think I'm going to go back to chicken and eggs.
Eggs are like a luxury a little bit?
Exactly.
Is there something that if you had more money or felt better about the economy, something that you would buy?
Yes, a new car.
What's your car like now?
It's a terrible Nissan that keeps having 100 problems because it's almost at 90,000 miles.
Prices going up, economic opportunity stagnating. There's a word for that, Stacey.
There is.
That's stagflation.
It's stagflation. It's the worst of all the inflations, I think. And it's kind of a trap for the Federal Reserve because if they cut interest rates, it does help grow the economy, but it can also make inflation worse. So it puts everybody in a tough position.
Yeah, and it's not clear to me what the fix is at this point. I mean, we've got economic challenges that I don't know, whatever you feel about Jerome Powell or whoever's running the Fed, I don't know how fixable it is at this point.
Well, I agree. And prices are going up, and with tariffs, they're going to go up more, at least a little bit more. It could be a one-time thing, but it is a really tough position. It's not obvious what they should do. But the Federal Reserve yesterday said jobs right now are the most important. And I think most of us would probably agree, although if inflation gets out of control, that can be really bad. So, Max, we talked earlier in the show about the big economic news of the week, which is the Federal Reserve and interest rate cuts. And somehow everyone in the country knows about the Federal Reserve and interest rates now. It has become huge news.
Yeah, and we've also been talking about this question of Fed independence and the sense that Trump and members of his administration are doing things to kind of attack the Fed or to push them in various directions. And I was excited about the conversation we're going to have because we've been sort of talking about the Fed. And I know this is kind of partly how you feel, but some of it has to do with conventional wisdom, whatever. That there is this beautiful jewel of public policy that is the U.S. Federal Reserve.
I am a huge fan of the central bank and the structure of it and the system.
And I appreciate that. But I also thought it'd be fun to have a guest who would kind of challenge that a little bit.
Fair enough. Yes. I mean, I think it's good to challenge these things. That's what they're there for.
All right. So we have Rohit Chopra, who was the director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau under Joe Biden. He served on the FTC under Trump. He helped actually set up the CFPB as its assistant director. Basically, he is a heavyweight on the kind of progressive left. And he has kind of an interesting perspective on these issues. And I thought it'd be fun to kind of hash it out here. Rohit, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
So we got the rate cut. That was the big headline, the 0.25 percentage point rate cut. But there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that was also making news. Do you mind just kind of laying out some of the things happening in the Fed right now, which has always loomed very large in my world, but is somehow also looming large in the regular world now? Very strange.
Yes, Stacey, there had these sets of meetings to determine what to do with those interest rates. And it had to have been a really awkward meeting because one of the governors who was going to vote there, sitting, deliberating, and voting, was actually the target of an attempted firing by President Trump. That's Lisa Cook, who is battling in court. She has won many rounds of that courtroom battle and cast a vote. Another person sitting in that room is newly confirmed Governor Stephen Miron, who is currently the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors and is in some ways dual hatting, taking both jobs.
Like
He's
his side
leave,
hustle.
which is unusual.
Thing now, anyway, just in general in the workforce.
It's true. The gig economy, it's for everybody now. Yeah.
And this comes after, of course, months and months of the president targeting Jay Powell, essentially trolling him online and infamously showing up in hard hats to do a site inspection of a construction project. So right now, there is a lot of debate about what's the right role for the president and Congress in the Federal Reserve. And a lot of people are fiercely defending the status quo. But I think the story is sometimes trickier than that.
Well, also, we should say that Stephen Miron, who was in his new role, this is his first time voting on interest rates, was the lone dissenter and very much in line with what the president has said he wanted. Miron said he wanted a
bigger cut.
Bigger cut.
Yeah.
Yes, bigger cut.
So, Rohit, you have thoughts about the Fed, and we've talked, off this podcast about this a little bit, but I'd love for you to just explain when you say they're sort of assuming everything's great or whatever, what you mean, or at a high level, what is wrong with the Fed today?
Yeah, well, I would put it this way. There's lots of reasons why in a democratic society, we create some anti-democratic features in certain parts of our government. For example, we make sure the judges are confirmed for life. The idea being they shouldn't stand for election all the time, be subjected to the political process. And we also cordon off some of our regulators to make sure that they're not put in the middle of a total political slugfest. That's some of the agencies I've served at, the CFPB, the FTC, others. And then you really have the Federal Reserve System, which has, in many ways, an enormous amount of power. We talk about it as a central bank, but another way to put it, it's a price control agency. It sets the price and supply of money that has so much effect throughout the entire economy. And one of the things that is important to me is that even if an agency is independent, it can't be unaccountable. And I think there is questions about whether the Fed has always been accountable to the public or if it's often serving the interests of a narrow set of financial stakeholders. And really, prime among those examples is the Fed's lack of preparation when it came to an epidemic of subprime mortgage lending, for which the Federal Reserve had an enormous amount of authority to crack down on, chose not to, and the results were really catastrophic.
So what would your vision be for a Fed going forward if it's not a politicized Fed, but it's not the Fed it is now? Like, what if you were designing it? And the CFPB is
part of the
funded.
Fed. That's right.
Is it technically part of the Fed? Or okay. Yeah, so you've been in the, I don't want to say belly of the beast, but I'll just say it, belly of the beast.
How would I want it? I actually do think it's really important for us to think, what is the role of these Federal Reserve banks? Remember, it's not just a Federal Reserve board appointed by the president. There are also Federal Reserve banks. We're sitting
12 of them all over the country.
That's right. We're sitting uptown from an extremely powerful one at the Federal Reserve Board of New York. I think we also have to make sure that, do we have the right structure in terms of allocating what powers the Fed should use as to what powers should be located elsewhere? I think there are some legitimate criticisms about the Fed's expansive view of its interpretation of law, including its interventions in money markets and other actions that have moved the flow of credit away from local banks toward the global money markets. That has a real impact on our economy.
I mean, one thing that I find really interesting is, on some level, Stephen Myron, the new governor, is like he's like a Trump guy, right? He's a White House economic advisor. He seems like a loyalist. On the other hand, in addition to being those things, he has advocated for some of the very things that you're talking about right now. And like reading, there was an Elizabeth Warren op-ed that you pointed me to back in August, essentially bringing up some of these issues that you're talking about right now. And there was an op-ed by Scott Bessent in the Journal just a couple weeks later that has kind of a very different words. Like Bessent is using kind of conservative buzzwords. He accuses the Fed of like gain of function monetary policy, little COVID hat tip there, but kind of ultimately pointing in the same direction, right?
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is not a political debate about it, but what's the right place for this institution? When the financial crisis occurred, there was a lot of discussion about whether core consumer regulation should ever be at the Fed. Every Fed governor I have spoken to, he likes to say, I'm glad the Fed's powers were stripped and a CFPB was created, because that was last on our list of attention.
Well, yeah, you've got inflation, you've got unemployment numbers. Like, those are two big, I mean, the dual mandates.
It's a big deal. And I think that we got to ask ourselves, what do we want them doing? I think what we want them doing is stewarding the money supply in ways that create stability, that still create the conditions for growth. And I would also argue trying to ensure that the United States has a currency, that a payment system that is working. But there's a lot of things that they do, including on the regulatory front, where there's long been concern that they are captured by big Wall Street interests rather than representing the borrowers and the business owners that are really affected by their decisions.
It feels like what you're saying partly is like, hey, there's a lot at play right now. It's kind of an opportunity to think about where should the Fed go? Like what should the Fed look like? And part of me wonders if like we're just sort of playing fantasy politics here, because like the CFPB's gone. I mean, the CFPB still technically exists,
there,
but it's not doing anything. And Trump maybe like there are a bunch of these like populist ideas that are floating around the Trump administration. But what he's actually doing is like goosing the stock market. And it's like this conversation we're having feels very far away from what's actually happening. And I was wondering, like, do you see opportunities for change that could actually happen in this direction during, the next, 3 years?
So, Max, I would push back a little on that, which is that, of course, it's idiotic to defund and defang the CFPB. That's just stupid, and I agree with that. But the truth is that the Fed has changed dramatically over the years without any legal change. It happens because of those governors and chairs who sit in those seats. The concept of Federal Reserve independence actually is relatively new. It's from the last generation, where there was acceptance around the world that some insulation from politics was beneficial to achieving a stable prices. But you'll start seeing with people who are now sitting in those seats, many of them who want to salute the president rather than really focus on their mandate, that's going to change this Fed. There are going to also be people who really are thinking differently about what those tools are. And I think we have to pay attention to that. There's already rumblings. What's going to be the Fed's role in stablecoin and crypto? Would the Fed potentially not just target one interest rate, but intervene in the market with their balance sheet in other ways? I don't think you need a law change on some of this to witness that change occurring. And frankly, a great example is that Donald Trump has not changed a lot of laws in this country, but he has changed a lot of agencies pretty dramatically. And we need to really think and debate, what is it that we want our Fed to be doing? Because again, I just don't think independence should ever mean unaccountable.
I mean, obviously things are changing a lot right now. If you kind of project forward, looking at some of the changes that are possibly going to happen and some of the changes that have already happened, like what does the Federal Reserve look like in 5 years?
I think there should be quite less power when it comes to bailouts and backdoor bailouts especially. Congress was very angry about the Fed's backdoor bailouts and frankly, front door bailouts during the financial crisis, curtailed that. I do think it is important to really limit the power to backstop and pick and choose winners and losers in the financial sector. I think we have to do things that give them less ability to subsidize certain types of activities, borrowing by hedge funds, borrowing by some other financial institutions, and get them focused on their core mandate, especially when it comes to making sure that they are a lender of last resort for local banks, running a stable monetary policy, and not being seen by presidents as a cure-all to enact their agendas with no consent from the governed.
Have you converted?
I mean, I still am. This is quite a look I'm getting.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure I'm not sure.
I really think a good central bank is like really good for democracy and really good for people. But I think it has to also change with the times so that it is responsive and that it is not seen as a group of priests and priestesses who make determinations about our lives without really understanding how the economy is working on the ground.
There is something of an ecclesiastical vibe around the Fed. That is true.
Yeah, I worry about this. Actually, I worry about that many of them spend their time traveling around the world to economics conferences. In reality, Stacey, back in the day, there was actually a Fed governor who was a hog farmer. They really represented a broader swath of America. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
See, I think if they're going to be so above the fray, they should wear cool outfits like the Catholic Church.
Oh,
wigs, too.
They should have robes.
They should have robes and ceremonies and just either really lean into it or bring back the hog farmers.
It would make the press conferences a lot more exciting to cover.
If Powell had like a purple gown that he had to wear, like whenever he...
Instead of just the tie, he went full gown.
And by the way, I'm not sure that we should be happy that usually they take unanimous votes and usually that everything is scripted. We should probably want a degree of debate when it comes to issues that are so important to our economy.
Yeah, that's true. There should be dissent, especially at a moment like now when the path forward is really unclear. And it seems like there are valid reasons to go in a bunch of directions.
Rohit Chopra, thank you for being here.
Thanks again.
Stacey, I don't know if you've been following this, but there is a huge story in the world of sports happening right now, sports business in particular, involving one of the biggest stars in basketball, Kawhi Leonard, one of the richest people in the world, Steve Ballmer, the longtime executive of Microsoft. I think he's the seventh richest person in the world, and a massive tech company that the Justice Department described as a, quote, $248 million scheme to defraud investors and lenders. In brief, the NBA is investigating whether Ballmer, the owner of the LA Clippers, funneled payments through this weird tech company, which is called Aspiration, to Kawhi Leonard, and in so doing circumvented the salary cap. I know it sounds like really complicated, but like, I'm telling you, everyone is talking about this. And so I thought we would have to talk about it.
Okay.
And to do that, we have Randall Williams here, Bloomberg Businessweek sports columnist, everybody's business regular. Randall, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for having me.
So, Randall, can you just give us the kind of like the 101 on what this controversy is about? What is the accusation here?
Sure.
And like, why is it like causing people to sort of lose their minds?
It's a big deal because sports leagues like the NFL and the NBA have something called a salary cap. A salary cap is set up so that players are paid a specific amount and teams can only play players a specific amount. And so what Ballmer is accused of doing is going outside of that through this company called Aspiration and then paying Kawhi Leonard even more than what he's already paid. And I'm sure if we looked up Kawhi Leonard's earnings, he's probably made close to $500 million. And he's making even more because of these accusations.
And we should say this was originally reported on a podcast. Pablo Torre finds out.
The great Pablo Torre.
Yeah. But the basic allegation is that Ballmer, a rich guy who like he has more money than he knows what he could do with, is like using his personal wealth to funnel money and essentially cheat. Right? Like this would be like a cheating thing.
In some ways, yes. I mean, that salary cap issue is very fundamental to all the leagues because if you are able to pay someone outside of the salary cap, then what could happen is that an owner could persuade a player, hey, don't go play here because on top of the money that I'm already going to be paying you through the salary cap system, I'll get you a deal on the side. And so why this is against the rules is that what happens is a sponsor can go to an owner and say, hey, I want to do a deal with, let's just say, Smo Joe from California. And the owner is then supposed to be like, okay, that's fine. I'll connect you two. And the owner's supposed to move out of the way. In this case, that's not what's happening. There's three parties involved, allegedly. It's Ballmer, it's Aspiration, and Kawhi Leonard all working together to make sure that Kawhi Leonard gets paid. And that's against the rule. If Ballmer had said, hey, here is Aspiration, you two make a deal, I think this would be perfectly fine, but that's not what's being alleged.
So essentially this player was hired by this company, Aspiration. Like what is this company supposed to do?
You're saying, like, what was he paid $28 million to endorse?
Yeah.
Like, what exactly was he endorsing?
What does the company do, and what's he supposed to be endorsing?
So I'll read straight from ESPN because I think they summarize it the best. But
okay,
think of Aspiration as a digital bank, but environmentally conscious. The company's product includes savings accounts and debit cards with cash back from a select number of businesses who were, quote, doing the right thing, plus an option to plant a tree with every purchase roundup. The company also offered access to investment funds that are 100% fossil fuel free.
So they were essentially, as I understand it, getting paid to plant trees for businesses that wanted to, like...
It's like an online bank.
Do good or something.
Sounds good, right?
Oh, yeah. And this is where I should say, Ballmer has denied wrongdoing.
Of course.
Kawhi has said nothing. But I don't think anyone's... That's kind of his thing, right? Yep. Saying nothing. But I don't even know if anyone's accused him of wrongdoing in this case because he just signed a sweetheart deal. Also, Andre Cherney, who is the other co-founder of Aspiration, has essentially disputed the story as well, saying this contract, which has been characterized as a no-show job, was not, in fact, a no-show job. Just getting all that stuff out of the way. Go ahead, Stacey.
So I guess my question is, why is this such a big deal? First of all, why are there salary caps in place? And why is it a big deal that they're going over the salary caps?
Sure. Salary caps are fairness. I mean, if you look at baseball in particular, there are baseball teams that just can afford to baseball does not have a salary cap. The MLB does not. And so
Moneyball. Right?
Yes. I mean, that's a good example. But if you look at the Yankees, if you look at the Dodgers, they're two of the highest spending teams in the MLB. Now, do they always win? No, but
they win a lot.
They win a lot. And it is in some ways, some people say it is an advantage. In the NFL and the NBA, not so much. There is a salary cap. So everybody has the exact same money to spend. Now, you'll have owners who, some fans would argue, are not in the business of winning because the leagues are naturally profitable. But at the same time, as it pertains to the salary cap, yes, the players are being paid a lot more, but for the owners who really want to win, who this is their pride and joy, if you find out that someone is manipulating the system and you were in the running to sign Kawhi Leonard, and Kawhi Leonard went to the Clippers because of the fact that he was offered an extra $28 million to not show up, that's a problem. And
so it's like a dummy job.
Exactly. And another thing about this is it is a no-show job. I have never seen, and as Pablo Torre reported, there are no tweets from Kawhi Leonard about aspiration. There was anything.
What was his job supposed to be?
He was like
a no-show
endorsing
job.
this company.
Right. It was an endorsement.
Basically, there are all these things that Kawhi could or could not do depending on how he felt about it. So it was like some autographs, he could tweet,
right.
But there were no mechanisms in the contract essentially forcing him to do it. Whereas I think in most endorsement contracts,
you're required
you got to do something.
So an example of this, like a big endorsement deal would be Nike with LeBron James. He's everywhere that they ask him to be. A smaller one is like NIL deals in college, name, image, and likeness deals in college, which often are just like post on Instagram a couple of times and then we'll pay you out and that's that. But Kawhi is not on social media. I mean, even in his New Balance advertisements, he doesn't say a lot. And even in press conferences, like no one has heard from him because outside of his media obligations, he does not speak. To be clear, athletes are allowed to do endorsement deals. It's just that your owner cannot be paying them outright to you.
Without counting it against the cap.
Right, without counting it against the cap. And there have been plenty of deals with teams, players, and owners where, again, an owner will introduce someone to a sponsor and they go and do a deal and then there's a billboard outside of a stadium with said sponsor and an athlete. There's no NBA rules that prohibit that. It's just in what Pablo Torre reports is like Ballmer has invested in this company. Some of his co-owners have also invested in this company. And so the NBA has to do some due diligence, and they're taking this very seriously.
I mean, are caps a good idea, or is it a better idea to just not have them, to not try to end up with like a baseball model?
I think cap systems are great because they stabilize things. Like a team can spend a certain amount of money and that's what it should be, in my opinion. I think that when you have different markets like New York, like Los Angeles, like let's say Houston, some of the bigger markets who have big billionaires who are ready to spend on this because this is their business, then that can create some sort of inequality. Now, at the same time, the players still have to get out on the field and perform all the same. But I think that it creates more stability when you have a cap system where this player is making this and this player is making that.
It's funny. Stacey's reaction to this, I think, we were talking earlier, is like, these are such big numbers, and like, wow, like $7 million for a no-show job or an alleged no-show job. Like, that seems crazy. The whole thing seems crazy. My reaction was actually like, I guess Kawhi Leonard is underpaid. And like, and like, this to me feels like evidence that the players negotiated a bad deal with the owners. Like that the salary cap should be a lot higher. If there's just like $28 million sloshing around and probably lots more, like the players should just get paid more money because clearly they're worth more money.
I hear you, but I think in what various outlets, ESPN, The Athletic, have reported over the years is that Kawhi Leonard was searching for money outside of the cap system even before this. When his free agency happened after he won the title in Toronto, there was reports that he was asking for private jet access, and he was asking for deals outside of the salary cap system.
I'm saying he's worth it.
I don't know. I would argue that he isn't because of the fact that he's been injured a lot. He doesn't play a lot. He's not the best brand ambassador. And when you have someone that you're spending...
not the best brand ambassador.
I mean, look, that's putting it light. I'm being kind here. I'm being kind. But when you have someone that you're paying, let's say $300 million to, you do want them on the billboards. You do want them to have some sort of a personality that isn't just a claw, or they're not just going to be like showing up to the press conference and say 5 words and then go home and you don't hear from them. You want them to promote this brand.
So wait, Randall, if we back up from this particular amazing case a little bit, does this say anything, do you think, about the state of sports right now and pay caps? And I don't know, like, what is your takeaway from this?
I don't think there's anything that huge that I would take away. The only thing is that there's always going to be money under the table. Always, whether it be at the high school level, the college level, and at the pro sports level, that there are people who are willing...
Capitalism finds a way?
Exactly. There's always going to be people who are willing to pay you more should you not show up for a job and, play 30% of the games that you're required to. That's my biggest takeaway. If there was a player that was worth... There are players who might be worth a no-show job. I just don't think Kawhi Leonard is the guy. So that's my main takeaway.
Someone to not do anything, you think the person should be more qualified.
Exactly. Look, Kawhi Leonard's tenure at the Clippers hasn't been great. But all seriousness, I think there's always going to be money under the table. And this allegedly is another example of that.
We are to the part of the show where we talk about underrated stories. Randall, thank you for sticking around because you don't know what the story is. I also do not know what it is. Apparently, Max has brought us something. I am also a little nervous. I don't know what is happening.
This is a story that gets at the future of technology, the future of branding, and also the future of cocaine.
But not running shoes.
Future of cocaine?
Wait.
All right, so there were some news reports earlier this week about a plane crash in eastern Brazil. These are news reports that are coming to us by way of the UK's Independent, by way of El Globo, the Brazilian newspaper. And essentially a small aircraft crashed in Brazil, killing the pilot, and authorities recovered 200 kilos of cocaine, and the cocaine had branding for SpaceX, Elon Musk's rocket company.
Wow.
Now,
okay.
I want to say, first of all, it's not what you think. This does not prove that Elon Musk has, put aside rockets and cars and brain implants and all the other things.
Correlation is not
to enter the drug business. Although, as we know, he's not totally averse to recreational drugs. I don't think I'm breaking news.
This has been a big part of his story, yes.
But what I will say is what's interesting here is, and this came out of a report I read in Vice, illicit drug sellers have basically branded drugs with tech companies for a really long time. Is
that true? Apple cocaine? And
or Skype. The article I said that Skype had been used like maybe 10 years ago, I guess, back when Skype was cooler. I think it's actually kind of a way to see how cool your tech company is. It's like,
if you have a under-the-table cocaine deal.
If drug dealers are like, this thing is so cool, I'm going to stick it on.
That it makes cocaine even cooler than it already is.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
I thought cocaine kind of sold itself.
It's an achievement.
Are you going to buy...
You need SpaceX branding. I mean,
right. Is it like, I only snort SpaceX cocaine. I would never do...
I don't even feel comfortable if... first of all, never done cocaine ever.
No, me neither.
But if I were, I would not be doing Elon Musk branded cocaine.
Now, Randall, is that because you have questions about Elon Musk's capacity to achieve things, or is it because you have questions about the kind of person who would stamp a SpaceX logo?
Both. I think that any person who has the time to brand something like this, that's just not me.
Look, as Elon Inc. listeners, if you've come over to the Everybody's Business feed by now, will know I am deep in the lore. And I will say, looking at the pictures of the cocaine that was stamped with the SpaceX branding, they didn't do a very good job. The colors aren't quite right. It's kind of a light blue. It just looks a little grainy. It really looks like someone took an inkjet printer that was a little low on
Is this a discerning clientele?
Is it cyan or whatever the blue color was? And the toner it doesn't quite look right.
I just don't. I think anyone who would be buying SpaceX cocaine should just go to rehab. That's just what I think. I don't think that branding something like this, it's not appealing to me if I was going to be doing it. Elon Musk, no.
It's also funny to me because, like, I don't even know the reason you do this. Like, is it because if the authorities, like, poke in the plane, you're like, no, we got SpaceX stuff in the plane. Like, it's just like bricks of cocaine.
It's got to be people trying to get a marketing edge. That's got to be what it is. People feel like their cocaine will stand out in the marketplace of cocaine, I guess.
With SpaceX branding. But I just can't see someone being like, nah, man, I don't want the raw stuff. I need the SpaceX.
Is this generic?
Exactly. Like this isn't what I'm looking for. This is great value versus
a brand markup.
Right.
I just think this is significant because I've been talking and writing stories about the way that Elon Musk has harmed his brand, his personal brand, as well as the brands of his companies. You know, Tesla sales are in the toilet. But in the marketplace, obviously, some people still think that brand is very strong.
He's winning somewhere.
This show is produced by Stacey Wong. Magnus Henriksen is our supervising producer, and Amy Keene is our executive producer. Blake Maples is our engineer, and Dave Purcell fact-checks. Sage Bauman heads Bloomberg Podcasts. Special thanks to Jeff Muskus, Julia Rubin, and Maria Ling. If you have a minute, please rate and review the show. It means a lot to us. And if you have a story that should be our business, email us at everybody's@bloomberg.net. That is everybody's with an S at bloomberg.net. Thank you for listening, and see you next week.